They didn't know the reason I wasn't sitting at that table was because I owned the house they were sitting in. Before I continue, make sure to hit subscribe, drop a like, and share this story if you've ever been underestimated by your own family. I remember that night like it was yesterday. The house smelled of roasted turkey and laughter echoed from the dining room, the perfect family dinner. Except I wasn't invited. Mom had said, "Gina, maybe next year, when you're a bit more stable." Stable? I worked 2 jobs, paid my rent, and never asked them for a dime. But apparently, because I didn't have a fancy title or a rich boyfriend, I wasn't ready to join the family table. Through the thin walls, I could hear my brother Ethan bragging about his new car Dad helped him buy. My sister Madison showed off her new engagement ring, the one Mom paid half for. And there I was, sitting on the back porch, my dinner plate on my lap, pretending it didn't hurt. But it did. Every laugh, every fake toast, every, "We're so proud of you, Ethan," felt like another knife in my chest. They thought I was the failure. The quiet one. The one who still hadn't figured it out. What they didn't know was that I'd been building something, quietly, for years. Late nights, endless work, and sleepless weekends had turned my tiny freelance hustle into a 6-figure business. But I never told them. I wanted them to see me the same way they always had, until it was time to change the game. When Dad came out to toss the trash, he saw me sitting alone. He smirked and said, "You know, Gina, if you focused more on real jobs instead of your little computer thing, maybe you'd be in there with us." He laughed and went back inside. That laugh stayed with me the whole night. I made myself a promise right then. Next time they called me not ready, they'd be saying it from my house. I just didn't know that moment would come sooner than anyone expected. A week later, Mom called me. Her voice was unusually sweet, the kind she only used when she needed something. "Gina, sweetheart, we're planning the family Christmas dinner this year. And we'd love to host it somewhere nice," she said, stretching that word like honey. "But well, your father's company's been cutting hours and Ethan just bought a condo. You know how things are." I knew exactly what that meant. They wanted money. The same people who told me I wasn't ready to sit with them now suddenly thought I was useful. I took a deep breath, forcing my voice to stay calm. "Sure, Mom," I said. "I might have a place in mind." When I hung up, my hands were trembling. Not with anger, but with anticipation. For years, I'd been silent while they mocked me. But this was my moment. What they didn't know was that the place I had in mind was my newly bought luxury house, the one I purchased last month in full cash. After landing my biggest business contract yet, I'd been hiding that success carefully. My company, a digital marketing agency, had just signed a national client. I'd gone from coding websites in my small apartment to running a team of 10 from my own office. And yet I'd said nothing to my family. Not because I was afraid, but because I wanted them to see the difference between judgment and reality. When Christmas Eve came, I texted in the family group chat, "Dinner's on me this year. I've got the perfect place." Mom replied instantly, "Oh, that's great. But please nothing too small or modest, okay?" I smiled at her message. "Don't worry, Mom," I typed. "It'll be perfect." The day arrived. I stood by the door, nervous but calm, wearing a simple black dress. Not too fancy, just confident. My heart raced as the sound of tires crunching on the driveway echoed outside. Ethan's voice came first. "Wait, whose house is this?" Mom gasped, clutching her purse. "This can't be the right place. Gina must have rented it for the night." They stepped inside, staring at the chandelier, the marble floors, the grand piano near the window. Dad looked around, confused. "Gina, whose house is this?" I smiled faintly. "Mine," I said softly. For a moment, no one spoke. The air was heavy, disbelief mixed with something close to fear. Ethan laughed nervously. "You're kidding, right? You can't afford this." I looked straight at him. "Actually, I bought it last month. In cash." Mom's mouth fell open. "In cash?" She repeated, her voice cracking. I nodded. "Remember when I wasn't ready to sit with the family? Turns out I was busy building something worth sitting for." The silence that followed was the most satisfying sound I'd ever heard. But just when I thought I had the upper hand, Dad's expression changed, cold and sharp. "Well," he said slowly, "if this is really your house, then you won't mind helping us with some of our bills, right?" I froze. His words cut through the air like glass. In their eyes, I hadn't become successful. I'd become useful. And that's when I realized my revenge wasn't over yet. I stood there pretending to laugh it off, but deep down something inside me broke. I had finally proven myself, yet they still saw me as a wallet, not a person. That night after everyone left, I sat on my living room couch, lights dimmed, staring at the champagne glasses they hadn't even bothered to wash. The same people who once said I wasn't ready had eaten my food, taken selfies in my house, and left me with the same emptiness they'd always given me. But then, I remembered something. Mom had mentioned that Dad's company was going under, and I knew exactly why. His company was one of the local firms that used old-school marketing, the kind I had quietly replaced with digital solutions. A strange idea hit me. What if I didn't just show them success? What if I made them need me to survive? A week later, I got a call from Ethan. His voice was shaky. "Gina, you busy?" "Dad's firm is in trouble. He might lose the business." I stayed quiet for a second, then replied softly, "That's tough. Maybe he should talk to a marketing consultant." There was a pause. "You mean you?" I smiled. "Maybe." Within days, I got a formal meeting request from my own father. It was awkward seeing him in that office, sitting across the table from me, pretending to be professional. "So," he began, "you really run this company?" "Yes," I said calmly. "I'm the CEO." He shifted in his chair, uncomfortable. "We need help with digital campaigns. Our sales have dropped 40%. Can you help us?" I leaned forward slightly. "Of course I can. But business is business, Dad. Full rate. No family discounts." His jaw tightened. I could see the pride burning in his eyes. But he had no choice. He signed the contract. For the next few months, I threw everything into that project. Not out of spite, but to prove a point. My team rebranded their company, boosted their online presence, and within 3 months, sales doubled. My father couldn't believe it. Every meeting, he'd look at me differently, less like the not-ready daughter, and more like someone who had built something real. One night, after a late meeting, he lingered behind. "Gina," he said quietly, "I misjudged you." I looked at him. "Yeah, you did." But then, just as things seemed to be turning around, Mom called again, this time in tears. "Your brother's business loan got denied. The bank said no. We were wondering if you could co-sign for him. You know, family helps family." I couldn't believe it. After everything, they were back. Not to apologize, not to connect, but to use me again. So I came up with a plan. A final one. I told them to come over for dinner next Friday. "I'll take care of everything," I said sweetly. They had no idea what was coming. Friday night arrived. Calm, quiet, and perfectly planned. The dining room gleamed, the table set with gold-trimmed plates and candles that flickered like secrets waiting to be told. I'd cooked everything myself. A full meal, just like Mom used to make when I was younger. Except this time, the house, the food, the wine, and the story. They all belonged to me. When the doorbell rang, I took a deep breath. Dad walked in first, dressed in his best suit. Mom followed, her smile sweet but rehearsed. Ethan strolled in last, acting casual, but his eyes scanned the place like he still couldn't believe I owned it. "Wow, sis," Ethan said, laughing. "You've really made it big. I mean, we always knew you'd do okay." I smiled faintly. "Did you?" Dinner started normal. Small talk, fake laughs, a few awkward silences. But I knew what they were really waiting for. The favor. Finally, Mom cleared her throat. "Sweetheart," she began softly. "Ethan's just hit a little bump in the road. He's starting a new business, but the bank needs a cosigner. It's just a formality. You have such good credit now." I set down my glass. "A cosigner?" She nodded eagerly. It's nothing big. You wouldn't even have to pay anything. Unless, of course, something goes wrong. I stared at her. You mean like the time you used my college fund for Ethan's car? Or when you told me not to bother applying for that internship because I wasn't ready? Or maybe when you laughed because I couldn't afford to come to the family vacation? The room went silent. Dad shifted uncomfortably, but Mom still tried to smile. That's all in the past, Gina. We're family. I nodded slowly. You're right. We are family, which is exactly why I'm going to be honest. I stood up, walked to the corner of the room, and pulled out a small folder from my briefcase. This, I said, placing it on the table, is a proposal. Not a loan agreement. A partnership offer? Ethan frowned. What do you mean? I looked right at him. If you want my help, you don't get it for free. You work for it. You join my company, at entry level. You start from zero. No more favors, no shortcuts. You prove you deserve it. Ethan's face turned red. You're joking, right? Me, work under you? I raised an eyebrow. You wanted help. I'm offering it. But on my terms. Mom's expression hardened. Gina, that's cruel. We're not your employees. I smiled slightly. Then maybe you shouldn't have treated me like one all these years. Dad leaned back, sighing. You're really going to let your own family struggle? I looked at him calmly. No, I'm giving you the same chance you gave me. None. Ethan pushed his chair back angrily and stormed out. Mom followed him, whispering something under her breath. Dad stood for a moment, looking at me like he wanted to say something, but didn't. He just left. The door closed and I finally exhaled. The silence that filled the room wasn't empty. It was peaceful. For the first time, I felt free. The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. Missed calls from Mom. A text from Ethan that just said, "You're going to regret this." My heart raced. I called her back, half expecting another guilt trip, but what I heard instead froze me. Gina, your father collapsed at the office. He's in the hospital, Mom cried. Her voice cracked with panic. For a moment, everything inside me went quiet. No anger, no pride, just fear. I grabbed my coat and rushed out, the roads blurring as I drove. When I reached the hospital, Mom and Ethan were already there. Ethan glared at me. Nice of you to show up, boss, he muttered. I ignored him and walked straight into Dad's room. He looked smaller somehow, weaker. Machines beeped softly beside him. He opened his eyes slowly, and when he saw me, he tried to smile. Hey, kiddo. I swallowed hard. Dad, I'm sorry. He shook his head. No, don't be. You proved me wrong. Tears stung my eyes. For years, I had chased success to prove them wrong, to earn the respect they never gave. And now, in that hospital room, none of it mattered. He was just my dad again. Human, flawed, scared. A few days later, he was discharged. He couldn't go back to work right away, so I quietly took care of the bills, without telling anyone. I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because somewhere deep down I still loved them. A month passed. One Sunday, Mom called again, but this time her voice was soft, almost humble. We're having a family dinner tonight. And Gina, we want you to sit with us. I paused for a moment, letting those words sink in. You sure I'm ready now? I asked quietly. She laughed nervously. You've always been ready. We were the ones who weren't. That night, I walked into the same house where I once sat outside, eating alone on the porch. The same table where I was told I wasn't ready to sit. But this time, when I took my seat, right at the center, no one said a word. They just looked at me, proud, quiet, maybe even a little ashamed. Ethan finally broke the silence. Hey, Gina. Thanks for what you did for Dad's company. They said your team saved it, I smiled. I just did my job. For the first time, there was peace. No competition. No judgment. Just family. But deep down, I knew something had shifted forever. I wasn't the same girl they once looked down on. I had built my own empire. My own voice. My own seat at the table. As I looked around that night, I realized something powerful. Sometimes life doesn't give you a seat at the table. Because you were meant to build your own. And when you finally do, the people who once left you out will be the ones asking if there's room for them. Moral: never let anyone decide when you're ready. Prove it in silence. Then let your success speak so loud they'll have no choice but to listen.